All right, guys, let's take a look at another machine here in our shop. This is our thickness planer. Um, and we're going to take a look at the different features on it and talk about what this machine is going to do for you. So the thickness planer, as the name might suggest, is going to take your workpiece and it's going to reduce the thickness until you get to the point that you need to be for your project. Depending on the project, that might be up around 4, 5, 6 inches. 6 inches is the maximum capacity on this particular machine. Or you may need to go as thin as 1/4 of an inch, depending on what you're working on. And this machine can do that for you. So let's look at the different parts. I am here, this is the front of the machine, this side right here. And so on the left, we've got our power, green for go, red for stop. We've got our infeed table right here, called infeed because this is where we're going to be feeding our material into the machine. And on the back side over here is the outfeed. That's where the material is going to exit the machine and where you're going to retrieve it. Then, of course, we've got our adjustment handle right here. And this handle is used to raise and lower the bed of the machine. The cutter head is located inside this housing, and as you're working, you're raising the bed up closer to the cutter head so that the machine can cut your material thinner. Now, I want to take a look underneath here, and I'm also going to remove this top housing and show you what the cutter head on this machine looks like. So this is the inside of our thickness planer, and you can see we've got a spindle that runs through here with rows of these square carbide teeth. This particular style is called a helical cutter head, which means the teeth are staggered. They're not parallel in lines this way, but they're in a spiral pattern around this spindle, which you can see as I rotate this. And what this is going to do for us is a couple of things. First, the helical orientation of these teeth is going to give us a cleaner cut on our surface than a straight knife would give us. Second, these teeth are much harder and stay sharp longer than a regular knife. And third, if one of these gets a nick in it, and you notice that on your workpiece you've got a line, then we can actually get in here and just adjust the teeth that have been damaged and continue working without having to take all the knives out and get them resharpened. So this is a great machine with a really great cutter head in it, but you can see that these teeth are extremely sharp, and I could easily cut myself right here just by running my finger on there. When this machine is running and that cutter head is spinning, you absolutely must keep your fingers away from this cutter head. Now, the cover for the top of the machine will always be in place on here when this machine is in operation. I've only removed it to show you what this looks like. Now, this is looking up inside the machine from down by the table, and there are a few things that I want to point out to you here. The first are these teeth up here at the beginning. These are called anti-kickback pawls. And the way they work is when you feed your material in from the infeed table, which is on this side, as your workpiece feeds in, you can see these push up out of the way easily. However, they do not move in the opposite direction. And so, if your material gets caught in the cutter head and it wants to kick it out, cause a kickback, these are going to bite down into your workpiece and minimize the possibility of a kickback. And that's where their name, anti-kickback pawls, comes from. The next piece right here is the first of 2 drive rollers. When this machine turns on, this roller is going to grab onto your workpiece and pull it into the cutter head. We have a second drive roller on the back side. And this roller is going to also grab onto your piece and drive it through. Now the distance in between these two drive rollers is 9 inches. And so what that means is that the minimum length of workpiece that you can feed through our machine is 9 inches because it has to always be in contact with one of these two drive rollers. If your workpiece is shorter than that, when it feeds into the machine, this first drive roller is going to lose contact with it before the second drive roller grabs onto it, which means your workpiece is only going to be engaged with the cutter head, and that's going to cause a kickback. That cutter head is going to grab onto your workpiece and it's going to throw it from the machine, most likely back towards the in-feed table. So it's really important that you always measure your workpiece and you know that it's at least 9 inches long so that it will always be in contact with one of those drive rollers. Now I do want to just remind you guys, as I've got my hands inside this machine, the machine is unplugged and the power to the dust collector is turned off. So there's no way this machine could turn on with my hands inside. This is absolutely something that I would not do if the machine were plugged in. The last thing I want to show you here is just give you an idea of how the table moves when I turn the handle on here. So inside the handle, there's an arrow pointing to high and an arrow pointing to low. And when it says high, what it's talking about is raising the table up. So when I turn this handle clockwise, you can see the table is raising up. Okay, so clockwise is going to close down this space between the table and the cutter head. And obviously counterclockwise is going to lower it back down, making the gap wider. This machine, as you're going to see, is one of the exceptions. When the machine is on, it is okay to make minor adjustments to the table height. Otherwise, it would be hard on the machine and a waste of your time to run your piece through, wait for it to come out the other side, turn the machine off, wait for it to stop, close this a turn it back on, run your piece through, retrieve it from the other side, turn the machine off, because this machine works in small increments. One full rotation of this handle only raises the table 1/16 of an inch. And so it often is going to take you 3 or 4 or 5 passes to achieve the thickness that you want. And you will see exactly what I'm talking about when we get to the operation video for this machine. The last thing I want to show you here is the scale. There is a scale right here on the leg of the machine just below the adjustment handle. And this scale is going to tell you what thickness your workpiece will be when it comes out the back side of the machine. So when you are setting this machine up, you're going to measure your workpiece and then you're going to set this scale to the measurement of your workpiece, as you will see. You'll notice the scale has a white side with black numbers and a black side with white numbers. We will always use the black side with the white numbers because that's going to be our inch scale. The white scale with the black numbers is metric, and we are not going to use that in our class.